Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 4 p.m. after show, hashtag Thirsty Thursday, Thirsty Thursday, where we do a little summary of what we talked about on our podcast this week. The podcast, of course, is called the 4 a.m. Report. It goes out every Thursday at 4 a.m. And then we do our little after show where we talk a little bit about that. But then we get to have a little fun diving into the topics that are in the news cycle, things that annoy us, things where we think people are being hashtag too thirsty. And we also enjoy a lovely beverage. Cheers, Susan. Oh, you've got the real stuff. You've got the real stuff.
Yeah.
Susan, how are you doing today?
Good. So, like we said, we wanted to touch on a little bit of news, but it's the opposite of hard news.
Not hard news. So what is it, Susan?
You're gonna make me say it, aren't you? So we're gonna call this Flaccid news.
Flaccid news. We're so funny, don't we?
Not exactly hard news, but it's still important.
I know. Well, Susan, if flaccid news is soft news, and then we've got hard news. What if it's kind of in the middle between the two? What would we call that?
We're trying.
Yeah. Anyways, everybody. So go ahead, Susan.
So this week's episode was with Kevin Steinberger, and it was there was a couple of standouts. Kevin Steinberger is the director of programming at IQPC, and they are a large global exhibition management company, and they come into contact with like workplace across some of the big brands. Some people are choosing to do it virtually from now on until forever. Some people are trying to reintroduce the work culture and what it means after COVID. So to me, one of the things that stood out that he was talking about, and I love this line item thing. I like spending money in the business. And, a lot of people are talking about how you don't have in-person event expenses anymore as much. So what are you doing instead with that budget? And how are you like creating surprise and delight and experiences for people, whether it's your own people or your customers, using some of that money that you saved from other expenses?
Yeah, no, we both really enjoyed the episode, and also, a little humble brag here and a little self-promotion here. We actually produce a podcast that Kevin is the host for, the Future Offices podcast. So on your favorite platform, look up the Future Offices podcast, and you can check out the work we've been doing with Future Offices at IQPC. We're really proud of it.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So now on to the news segment.
So let's talk a little bit about, let's revisit the Facebook conversation because it's still ongoing. We know that Facebook executives met with the Stop Hate for Profit group. No real resolutions came about. Facebook's kind of digging their heels in while over 300 big brands are boycotting for the month of July. And I know we have some thoughts here and not necessarily answers, just thoughts and questions. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Susan, is yes, so let's say Facebook does a better job with the hate speech and misinformation in the news feed, right? Like, let's say they clamp down on that. But what about their groups? Like, groups is such a big part of Facebook, and there are a lot of not nice minded groups out there where people get to share, people get to hide away and share their awful opinions on race and homophobic stuff and bigotry and all that awful stuff. That's still there, even if they clean the newsfeed. What do you think? Do you think Facebook should just be taking a stand fully and getting rid of all of that? Is that possible? Is that going to cause a huge uproar?
I mean, I think it's interesting because it's like, I don't think that enough people quite realize the implications of what a boycott is. I think right now people are talking about boycott from the perspective of like inorganic ad dollar boycott, right? Where I won't spend this money on Facebook because for whatever reason, it serves your bottom line in the moment. And it's easy enough if you're a large brand to take that stand because maybe you gain in publicity what you lost in, Facebook traffic. But beyond, what you were saying in terms of having these groups with the hate speech and also maybe the converse of it, the groups in which the positive conversations are shut down because no, let's not talk about that here because we don't do politics or religion or any of those. And we saw some influencers getting into hot water over the last few weeks, right? So there's a few angles to this, and I don't know, maybe I'm black and white, but for me, I speak for me, not necessarily us as a brand or the clients that we represent just yet, but I'm like, a boycott needs to be absolute. Like, ditch the platform and put your effort somewhere else. I don't think you're fully going to see people change their minds. Like Zuckerberg is very like, oh, I am pro free speech, no matter what the free speech is, and that remains his position. You're not going to change that position unless people make definitive action.
Yep. No, I agree. And I know this, it's been a hard decision for some people. I was telling you about a friend of mine who he happily went off Facebook, but still is on Instagram, even though Instagram's owned by Facebook. And his rationale, it makes sense to me. His thing was, you know what, Facebook itself, that platform has been a cause of misinformation, fake news, awful things said by people like President Trump, whose posts are lies and bigoted and don't get taken down at all. And so he's like, yeah, I'm done with Facebook. Instagram, he doesn't see as that problem, even though they're owned by Facebook. He doesn't see that as an issue and is happy to stay and play there, which from looking at Instagram, I think a lot of people have stayed and played there. So yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I can see that. It's because you don't have the usage of the platform is different. The way in which you share information is different. Nobody's on there to have these meaningful discussions around anything for that matter, right? So yeah, I can see that. For me, the line was a bit more like I was okay with ditching Instagram as well because, like I said, it's an experiment in focus as far as I'm concerned. And I'm like, we see the difference when we focus on LinkedIn, and so we chose to focus there. But having said that, I find it difficult to get rid of WhatsApp, for example, because I have friends in different parts of the world that I communicate with, and I find the platform easy. And where does the line lie, right?
Yeah. So because we want to keep this video not as long as last week's video, and so we want to keep this video a little shorter, we wanted to move on to the topic of Michele Romanow and her bar Goldie was closed down in Toronto last week because she had a secret little party around Canada Day, I think, and got busted. And it was an indoor gathering at her bar. She got busted. A sign went up on the door to Goldie on King West here in Toronto saying, you know, bar closed down or whatever. And then overnight, I guess, Susan, you were saying what appeared were little pink, I love you, Goldie, I miss you guys, kind of supportive Post-its all around the sign, which were clearly written by the same person because it was the same penmanship. And then someone said it clearly would have been Michelle's own penmanship. And she got raked through the coals, like double for that, for shutting the bar down and for doing that.
Too thirsty, right? Yeah. I think that was an interesting story. It was all over Reddit and it spread quickly with a lot of people from Clearbank coming forward with lots of stories. And while I think that's a shitty thing to do, like having illegal parties when you have, you know, you're a voice in the community. She's got 100 businesses. She's a dragon. Like people look up to her, and you really have to be responsible about things like that. But what really stood out for me was the fact that this cancel culture idea and the generally ready to jump on, the trolls ready to jump on, always seems to be amplified if the person in question is a woman. There've been other stories coming out of Quebec and stuff of other illegal parties. They never made it nearly as big. Sure, she's a dragon and she has the visibility, but still I find that when there's a woman involved, whether it's other women or it's just society at large, there's a double standard in terms of.
Yeah, I think there's a whole other layer. There's a tone. There's something different about it. Like society loves taking down a successful woman in a way that's different than a successful man. And it's almost like that. I don't know, but there's a great podcast I listen to called You're Wrong About, where the two hosts talk about women who have been questionably infamous women from our past, 20, 30 years of pop culture and news. And it reexamines how we talked about these women, even if they had done things that were wrong, how we talked about these women, the way they were treated, the assumptions we made. It's actually it's really interesting to go back and re-look at it, how we treated them in the media through the lens of today, what we did back in, say, 1990. It's very interesting.
It is. So there's some, flaccid news for you on what's happening out there, what's thirsty on the internet, good or bad. And drop us some comments and let us know what else you're seeing out there that's cool. The intention is to just get together, day drink because it's allowed, and chat out some issues of the day. Bye guys.
Thanks for joining. Bye.